Good morning. Irene, how are you?
Fine, thank you. And you?
I'm very well. How's your week?
Not bad.
Fabulous, fabulous. Let's listen to Joy.
Okay.
You can hear me. Good morning.
Good morning, Joy.
Yes, nice to be here this morning.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
It's a cloudy day in Mombasa.
Oh, it's cloudy.
Yeah, but very humid.
As usual, eh?
Yeah.
Thank you. Good to hear from you from Mombasa. We have other guys. Other guys, please turn on your video and say hi to us. Carol, Eva. Falguni.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
How's your Saturday going?
Yeah, we are great. We're great.
Good.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Salima.
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm doing well.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
Meryl, you are still muted, please. Just unmute yourself. Good.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you, Marilyn. Do we have, where are these? I can't see the gentlemen. They have vanished. Salima. Carol. We've not heard from Carol, neither Eva. If you can hear us, please say hi to us. I think Caroline is still logging in. She's still trying to log in. Well, so I want to welcome you again to this module 2 of advanced leadership skills. And as a norm, I think I'll request one of us to lead us in a prayer. Thereafter, we'll do a recap. Then we start on with today's focus on the training. So I'll call upon anybody to lead us in a prayer. Then I give the direction on the subsequent activity.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this new day. Thank you, Lord, for guiding us and through the night. As we begin this session, we ask and invite your presence to be with us in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Joy. Thank you for the prayer. Well, so I think we are a quorum, and I'll not hesitate to start, owing to the fact that last time we started very late. So today I think we've managed to log in on time. So I want us to start, and as we start, I want us to just have a recap of what we did last week. And maybe just call upon anybody to just share with us what you recall from last week's presentation. You may mention anything, 2-3 things that you actually your mind recalls clearly from last week. Then I'll summarize. Then I start on today's presentation. So who has the energy to kick us off? Just a recap of what we did last week. What do you remember we discussed around last week? Anything that you recall we discussed about last week? Because that's what will inform our, because since it's a module that is continuous, then it's important that we are able to link it with the previous one and also subsequently with whatever is coming ahead of us. That way then we'll be able to weave it together to inform our learning and also the process of general development with regard to Yes, that is who somebody is trying to, anybody to remind us what we had last week. And ensure that you mentioned something, otherwise I'll start calling names. Just to get abreast with each one of us. So you better start us off before I point you out. But I also don't expect you to leave. We are here to just share and learn from each other. Anyone? Nobody's remembers anything?
Okay, I can give it a shot.
Yes.
Okay, let me just say what really caught my attention.
Yes.
Was concerning delegation and the fact that when you delegate, the responsibility solely lies with you.
Yes.
And you can't come back and say, it is my people, the people who I gave, the responsibility lies with you. So you need to be careful. And as a leader, you should be willing to try and encourage others also to do things and build them up and give people an opportunity and congratulate them. Absolutely. And hold their hands. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Joy. Actually, that is very spot on. We said when you delegate, remember that the accountability rests with you, and therefore you can't blame and raise fingers and say it's not me. And also we said when you delegate, also make a point of acknowledging the effort of the persons that or the person that you delegated that work to, and also ensure that you coach and just make sure that they're comfortable, they have the right resources, they have the right skills for them to execute the delegated role. Thank you, Joy, for that. Okay, Lillian says she has issues with her sound. Lillian, maybe then you can just use the chat section. Salima did not attend the first module. All right, Salima. Your sentiment is taken well. I'll just give you a brief of what we had a discussion on.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Lillian says approaches to managing conflict. Thank you, Lillian. Conflict. Then Salima Merlin did not attend the first module. Then Salima also did not attend the first module. Okay. Carol has a problem with the microphone. Yeah, but Carol says what stood out was effective delegation. So from the last conversation, effective delegation is what caught the mind of Caroline. Thank you, Caroline, for that. Fantastic. So I think that's fair enough. Maybe just to give a glimpse of, and I can see the first, in fact, the first topic, or the first objective was effective delegation, and I can see a lot of people have a lot of interest in that area, because that's an area that has been so gray with regard to how effective can we manage this delegation, because at times we just find ourselves dishing out roles and tasks, but ensuring that that process is done correctly is usually a challenge to many people. So we looked at delegation and how we can carry out effective delegation and what accountability lies with. Then we went on to look at the managing of conflict. In fact, the question I was asking is conflict good or bad? And we agreed that conflict actually takes both perspectives. That's both functional conflict and dysfunctional conflict, meaning we are looking at constructive versus destructive conflict. And we say that at any given point in organizations, these types of conflict will actually exist. So there's no way we can say that you will operate in a very smooth environment without conflict. So meaning conflicts are indispensable in an organization. Then I think also we looked at the approaches of managing the conflicts, and we looked at the 5 approaches, and we said, depending on the situation, depending on the approach that you are taking, or depending on the approach that the team is taking, then any of those approaches can suffice. But caution has to be taken to ensure that you do not apply an approach which will backfire. Because there are some situations that may require competition, others may require accommodation, others may require avoidance. Okay, so it's important that we determine what is the best way of managing this conflict. Then we had also a discussion on negotiation skills. And I think also Falguni has mentioned that. That's what stood out for her, and how leaders can apply the negotiation. Thank you, Falguni. Then there was also the aspect of, in fact, negotiation skills worked in tandem with problem solving. So you identify the problem through negotiation, then you're able to solve that. Then lastly, we looked at creativity, which was mainly how, when you're solving issues, when you're coming up with solutions, then what are the most creative ways of resolving these problems to ensure that you're building the team? Because the purpose of a leader, remember, a leader is always somebody that we are looking up to. So at any given point, then we expect the leader to give us the direction. We expect the leader, or we want to look at stepping in the footsteps of our leader. So we are actually having that, we are envisioning this person to propel us to the next level, to transform us to the next level, to lift us, and basically to just make us, or to grow the potential in ourselves, so that we realize what we've been missing. And it summarizes now what the 5 areas that we looked at last week. I think that summarizes that, and maybe Salima, you're able to get the glimpse of what we discussed. We looked at those 5 areas, but I think you'll still be able to access the materials online to just keep yourself abreast with the conversation that we had. Right. So I think, allow me now to introduce today's topical areas. And before I do that, just like last week when I started with the talk or the discussion on leadership, when I talked about somebody called Simon Sinek, and talked about the aspect of leadership and why leaders should eat last. I'll wish also to bring in the aspect of, as a leader, you must move from what we call a comfort zone. I don't know whether, when you talk about a comfort zone, sometimes our rational understanding of comfort zone is like when you're seated in this chair, or when you are seated on where you are. Maybe you're actually following this conversation from your office, or you are following this conversation from the house. You could be seated somewhere, so you've already made yourself comfortable. But then when it comes to development-oriented skill, or we're looking at how do we develop you, that means then you must move away from the comfort zone. And that's why you don't remain in bed the whole day. Neither do you remain in bed every day. You have to, after some time, you have to wake up, you have to look at your plan, you have to execute some activities, you have to move out of that house for you to realize some achievement, or for you actually to feel that there's some progress. So when you talk about comfort zone, then from even the discussion we had last week, all that we discussed borders around people challenging themselves. For example, for you to be an effective delegator, then you cannot do things the same way you did. You can't do that. You cannot remain where you are for a long time. So you have to confront what we call the fear. From comfort zone, you move to the fear zone. Now, fear zone is where now you get some of the anxiety. Now, let me give you an example. You've been working under somebody for quite some time, but now there is a responsibility, or you've gotten a promotion, and now you're getting to, or there's that anxiety that you're going to be promoted. So by virtue of that anxiety about your promotion, that's now the fear zone, where you start asking yourself, will I manage? How am I going to deal with these colleagues of mine? How am I going to deal with these guys that we've always looked at them as very difficult to handle? So that's now the fear zone. Then you ask yourself, what if I don't succeed? What will I do? Now that's the what? The fear zone. But normally with those questions, then when you think outside the box, that's when you ask yourself, but if my friend here was able to manage it, who am I in order to do it? And in any case, this position is being held by, or was being held by somebody else. So if they could have managed, if they managed this position, why not me? Now that's where you say you will definitely jump into it and deal with the issues as they are. Now that's where you are now moving from the fear zone into the learning zone, where you accept that this is something that has to be done. You accept that you must confront the issues within this kind of portfolio. And whenever now you actually have that positive attitude that you have to learn, you'll actually consult, you'll find out how to deal with this situation. You'll actually have role models that will enable you to transform yourself. Then that is growth. So you're moving from the comfort zone, you move to the fear zone, you move to the learning zone, then you move to growth. So you start growing. So growth means now you start achieving some of the objectives. You start getting some milestones. You start, you find that you're actually managing people. You find that you're actually achieving your targets. That's where now growth comes in, because you've been consulting. You never shied off from that responsibility. So that's what I wanted to start us off as we look at this kind of conversation. And remember, in one of the books I read from a friend of mine, the book is called Your Dream is Calling. Your Dream is Calling, from Mbugua Mumbi. In Your Dream is Calling, this book gives what we call a roadmap to guaranteed success in one of the chapters. And he said that greatness is not where we stand, but in what direction we are moving. It's not where we stand, but in the direction that we are moving. And he goes on to say that we must always sail, sometimes with the wind and sometimes against it. But sailing we must, and not drift nor lie at the anchor. So that quote it usually inspires me. It actually makes people to, like, if you look at it and say that it's not where I'm standing today, but where I'm heading to. And at times we'll face these challenges. You know, the wind is like, now you face the obstacles along the way, but you will never stop moving. So you have to look at progress. Progress. One Denzel Washington said that let us not confuse progress with movement. At times we appear to be so busy, but whatever we are actually achieving is only movement, but we are not progressing. Meaning progress is something that we can always measure. We can see from what level have we moved to the next level. But movement, that's why you can see people appearing very busy. In the streets of Nairobi, people appear so busy. But at times, those people have no direction. Or whatever they're doing is not within a particular time frame. And therefore, we should not always confuse progress from movement. So always focus on that. Let's look at what is it that we can confront at any given point. So ladies and gentlemen, then today I want us to focus on 6 areas. One is team building for work teams. Then closely related to that is building high performance teams. Then also look at team building at the top, development planning, credibility, and empowerment. Those are the main focus areas for today's training. Those are my training objectives. And for us who were there last week, I think from the expectations, some of the expectations will still be met continuously, because remember, leadership is holistic. There are a number of issues a number of things that we need to embed together for us to achieve the objectives that we had set initially. So we'll be looking at these first 3, then we'll take a break of 10 minutes, then the second, that's development, credibility, and empowerment. That will make the second part of this conversation as we wind up. Good. So over to team building for work teams. And as we start on this conversation, I want us to look at what is team building. What's team building? Because unless we understand what is team building, we will not be able to understand how do we build teams, or how do we ensure that we have effective teams. Because if you're looking at a team, then remember, a team has to have complementary skills. We are looking at every member playing a critical role towards the overall success of that team. Just like a soccer team, just like any other sport, where whenever you have a team, that means each of these team members is very critical to the success or failure of the team. If today I don't carry out my responsibility in my position, the failure that I'll have in my position will not only remain with my position, but it will also spill over to other people. They'll not be able to have achieved something because maybe what I will have done will have enabled the other person also to progressively develop on what I've done. I could be working on a project. So once the project stalls in my office, then it means that the other people who are actually supposed to work on the recommendations of that report, or they're supposed to also develop something on that report, will actually not have that opportunity to do it. And that's the thing. First, what's team building? Because looking at that, then we need to understand what is it. So to understand this concept, then we need to ask ourselves these 2 questions. What do I bring to the team? And what do I need from the team? What is it that I'm bringing to this team? And what is it that I need from the team? Once the 2 questions are answered, then that's a team. But in most cases, you realize that we have a tendency whereby it's all about what do I get from the team, or what do I need from the team? But sometimes people tend to forget that it's also what they are bringing to the team. So you need to ask yourself, what is it I'm bringing to this team? What is it that I'm bringing to this organization? So when you go for an interview, for example, some of the questions we ask, we want to see a person who has this passion to change or to bring something, to contribute or to have added value to the organization. But if you're coming to this interview and you appear like you're just like any other person within the organization, then we don't see value in you. And that's why if people want to stand out in a team, then we need to see what value contribution do these people possess. What is that we lose out if we don't have them on board? The same way in a team, we need to ask ourselves, what are these people that we feel is like they're anchors of the team? They're the very strong links to this team, because without them, then our weakest link is actually identified. So for us to be able to do this, then we need to know what is it that we're bringing to the team, what contribution am I bringing to this team, and then what do I need from the team. Once I understand what I need from the team, then it enables me to synergize what I bring to the team vis-a-vis what I need from my team members. The same way, so every person has the same approach, the same thinking. So that line of thought then will enable a very successful chain within that team. Otherwise, we'll have these problems when organizations are committed to teamwork. They're willing to change structures and systems to support it, but are not committed to the bottom-up work that will be required. Now, this resonates very well with our previous conversation on delegation, where we said, let it not just be instruction-based, but let's also hear from the people that are taking part. Let's hear from the players. If I'm the one taking up this responsibility, then we also need to ensure that we are able to understand what role am I supposed to do. And that's the only way we can build a team. So when I delegate to the work, I've already formed a team. It could be 2 people, it could be 3 people, but that's already a team. So that team, for it to succeed, there has to be a lot of communication, there has to be a lot of understanding. We need to know exactly what is it that this person needs. What is it that I require from them? What is it that I'm also bringing in to this person? So if I'm delegating, then what sort of information do I need to share with my colleague or with my other staff member? And therefore, once I do that, then what do I need from them? What is it that, what sort of responsibilities are they going to effect from this, whatever I brought to them? That understanding, then it forms a very, very strong bond with regard to the realization of these objectives. So when we do that, or through the team members, then the first question that I've talked about is, what do I bring to and need from the team or the group? Then secondly, we look at the interpersonal aspect. What do you bring to and need from the group? Then team, what will we do? An organization, how will you organize and create? So all those questions are the ones that form the basis within which we need this kind of training. Why do we need team training or team building training? That means we are looking at the individual, the interperson, the team, and the organization. But all in all those questions will inform or will actually bring about acceptance, will bring about synergy, and will bring about productivity and creativity. Because at any given time, once I understand the obligations from my end, you understand the obligations from your end, I understand what I need from you, you understand what you need from me, then of course, there will be acceptance. Because now that will destroy completely any ambiguities, any lack of clarity with regard to how we are supposed to work complementary to each other. Then once that is done, then it enhances a synergy. Synergy becomes part of life. Synergy becomes culture of the organization. And through that synergy, then creativity and productivity will become the ultimate gain within the team or within the organization. So a team building workshop will involve awareness raising. Secondly, after raising the awareness, then we need to do what we call diagnostic instrument-based feedback to members so that members can have reasonable valid map of where they and their teammates now are located. Then after that, we look at what? Interventions that includes the practice. Now, there is sometimes when we interact with professionals, we ask them, now that we normally have these team building activities, what do you purpose to achieve in each of these yearly team building activities? And the feedback that we get is just mind-boggling, because people say, no, we took people to the mountain hike. We took people to maybe to Mombasa. We took people to the beach. We took people to the forest. But then you ask yourself then, what sort of team building objective were you trying to attain? And in most cases, you never get an answer. You just say that we just wanted people to be out of what? Out of the workplace. Do you know that the best team building activities, they're informed by one, as a team building person, the team building organization or the person that you are giving that responsibility or you're contracting to carry out that role, first of all, must conduct what we call feedback session before. There is that feedback that you need to gather just prior to the team building event. Now, that way then, it will enable the team building personnel to tailor make, because from that feedback that they will gather, it will inform them to know the gap within the organization, the gap within the teams, the gap generally, what is there a problem within the culture and all that. Now, that way then, this team building personnel is now supposed to tailor make the activities towards resolving that problem. But in most cases, we just select the team builder. Do you have a team building person? Yes. This is the contact. You call the person. Can we meet in Mombasa? What is your quote and all that? Once we are done, then this person comes, and sometimes whenever they're carrying out the team building event, it becomes more fun, but there's no learning that happens. Well, fun should be part of it, but your main objective should be that this time you are carrying out a team building event because there is something that you want to resolve. And that resolving can only be attained when the team building personnel has a clear glimpse of what goes on in the organization. And they can only do that if they have gathered data about the situation in the organization. And they should not gather data from you as a HR officer, HR manager, HR professional. Your information should just be part of the feedback from the other team members, but let it not appear like this person is getting the first-hand information from you that will inform the team building activity. Once you change that approach, then you'll find that your team building activities will start yielding results. They start yielding results. I've seen that before. I've been part of it, and it actually, because during that fun aspect, that's where issues come in, and you can see people coming to terms that actually this is what we do and we need to change. It actually comes from them, because now the team building personnel becomes a facilitator, a coach, who now tries to make us feel that there is something that we need to change. So that next time when we have another team building event, we should not discuss about the same problem. That's where then it will inform now the interventions that we will need to put in place. So just rethink about how you've been carrying out your team building activities and make sure that they are objective based. And don't just pick any team building person because they do team building. There are those ones that just do gymnastics. So don't fall into the gymnastics, but ensure that this person, this team that you're taking will actually be driven by the objective that you want to achieve within that activity, regardless of the fun and the rest. Well, that's on team building, unless if there's any question on team building, maybe I can take a question on that before I move to the rocket model. Is there any question on team building? Any clarification? Okay. Silence means, I can interpret it to mean you're trying to internalize, or we are at the same pace, or we are still thinking, what is this that is being discussed? Okay, let me see whether there is a chat. I think I can see something like a chat. No question. Good. Okay, Brenda, thank you. Good. So allow me now to proceed to high performance teams, which is basically a continuation of team building. And I want to use the rocket model. Now, a rocket model, or this rocket model was developed by Caffey and Hogan. These were professors in the Caffey Consulting Limited in US, and they are renowned for their training on coaching and high performance teams in the United States. So the rocket model incorporates these components that you can see in the diagram, and according to them is that high performance teams can practically apply the rocket model. And usually rockets, we know them to be moving towards, they're actually disappearing into the other, we can refer to them as disappearing into the other part of the world. And the essence of doing that is that you're able to discover what goes on in other worlds, what goes on in other spheres. That's the essence of the rocket model, which is more of a discovery. It's like they came up with this rocket model because it gave a resonation, or it gave that resonation with regard to teams must think beyond what they do. They must think beyond what is it that they achieve currently. And that's what we mean by propelling them to the next level. So these two guys, they came up or they developed this model as a framework to set the tools for boosting team performance. And normally this model is used to diagnose team dynamics and to provide leaders with specific tools and activities to improve team performance. Why did they come up with this model, or what motivated them? What was the drive behind them mooting this model or coming up with this idea? The reason was that they carried out a survey from a number of managers in organizations over the world, and they realized that managers were struggling to transform their people into effective teams. And I believe this struggle is with each one of us. It's only that sometimes we don't want to come into reality. But the aspect of building an effective team is a daunting task that everyone must constantly try to initiate processes towards that. So they were informed by that, and they felt, what is it that we can put in place that can guide people to build effective teams? And that's what informed them to come up with these components. So the first one is the mission, one of the components. And on the mission, according to these two guys, or to these two authors, and actually maybe just to mention is like the book actually is, that's the book, The Rocket Model, A Practical Advice for Building High Performance Teams. Is a book that was written by the two gentlemen. So according to them, a mission becomes the driving force. That your mission is what is important. And according to this, they had asked, or the question that you need to ask yourself is, what is our mission as a team? What is the mission of this team? What is the mission of this organization? So once you ask yourself that question, then you're able to know which direction you are going to take based on this rocket model. Because based on that is when it drives all other components of the model. So you can see the vision right there, sort of the mission, which means the mission, then we have the talent on this other side. I have a mission, but I don't have the people to drive the mission. I may have the best mission, I may have the most fantastic mission, the most brilliant one, a very ingenious sort of mission, but failure to have these other components in place, then it will just end up to be actually a pipe dream. So once we've determined where our direction is, what is our mission, then we need to select the kind of people that will actually propel this mission. Remember, from the mission, we'll have the objectives. We have the goals and objectives. But these goals and objectives cannot exist in isolation. We need people. And even the mission, who comes up with the mission? It is the people. So the people that come up with the mission, then they should ensure that they map it with the right talent. You have to assemble the right talent to enable you to get to, or to achieve that the right people. And that right people, remember, it's not just about having the most qualified technician, having the most qualified person. It's not about being a PhD holder. It's not about being a doctor in a particular sector, but it's about your ability, your mindset, your attitude to execute a particular role. So let's not just hoodwink ourselves with talent being this knowledge, skills, and knowledge and skills, but we also need to look at the attitude. Let's look at the person culture fit. Does this person fit in this position? Do they fit in the culture? Are they able to propel this process? Are they able to propel their roles to achieve the greater good of the organization? So then that means then we need to ensure that as team leaders, we're able to determine what skills they still needed to develop and work to ensure that the team is able to improve and achieve the expected outcomes. And these could be developed through coaching, training programs, practice test sessions, and so many other. We may have role play groups. We also may need to have what we call simulations. All that will enable somebody to try and fit in this position. Take an example. You want somebody to build their capacity in business development or in marketing, or generally for them to just enhance their skills. The best way to do that is if you can coach this person. Taking this person just to in the role and inducting them does not make them to fit into it. But at times you need to bring out these role plays and say, assuming now James is the client, I want you to convince this client that we have the best services, and just understand how this person is articulating themselves. Now, we may not use James as the main person, but you encourage them to be using their fellow colleagues to just gauge and determine whether they actually they have the necessary ammunition, they have the necessary arsenal for them to engage clients and also to propel the purpose or the mission of the organization. So that's on talent. Next, we have the norms. What are norms? Sometimes we say norms are things that make us to behave in a particular way, to conduct ourselves in a particular way. They tend to dictate how we interact, how we communicate, how we share information, all that. So in this case, then, norms basically are the rules that govern how teams make decisions. How do we conduct our meetings? How do we invite people? How do we get work done? How do we hold team members accountable for their results? And how do we share information? So based on those specific guidelines, that's where now our norms are. So they inform how to deal with issues. So then teams will fail because they do not explicitly set decision-making, communication, meeting, and accountability norms, or ask themselves if the rules they have adopted are still working or need to be improved. So let's not be people at the comfort zone, where we'll say, this is how we've been doing it, these are our rules, and it has been working for us. Sometimes you hear people saying, no, it has worked for us, and I don't think we need to change. Save for a few, they'll say, save for a few areas where we've encountered, but we've been able to sort it out all the same. Not knowing that since the business environment is dynamic, everything is changing. This requires a lot of paradigm shift in the manner in which we make decisions, in the manner we need to deal with people. Take a good example. When COVID struck, we had to go back to the drawing board on how we conduct meetings. And yes, we had to adopt virtual meetings. But I know there are some organizations that were so rigid previously and they could never think of holding meetings until when these meetings started being held. That's when they realized, oh, we can still hold these meetings conveniently. In fact, you realize that even postponing meetings became a thing of the past. Unlike before, where we expected people to physically present themselves for the meeting. The virtual meetings has made it very easy. I can even hold a meeting in another meeting where maybe I'm having a conversation, but I can have that continuously taking place. So as a team, to build these high performance teams using CAFE's model, then we need to ensure that we understand what are these governance regulations that we've adopted as an organization and as a team. Next is buy-in. This is a very daunting task, buy-in. Many times we will want to get what we call people buying into our ideas, buying into our decisions, and generally owning that process to enable us to propel ourselves. So when you're dealing with teams, then we need to ensure that we have achieved this buy-in. Failure to which, if we are not able to get people supporting our agenda, supporting our idea, then we are left without the support processes. So it is very, very imperative that we bring on board the main players of this idea. Let us ensure that we have the people that will support this idea. Remember, a CEO cannot succeed on their own. A manager cannot succeed on their own. They require this support, or the support, we call them as support, or the anchors to that idea. You cannot work as a lone ranger and succeed. So we need to build teams that one way is to develop a compelling team vision. Let people understand and live with the vision. Let them profess the vision. Let the vision actually inform their behavior. Let them inform, or the vision, let it inform how they conduct their business. Once they have been able to embed that vision into them, they'll develop that sense of belonging. They'll actually feel part and parcel of that decision. Then after that, also, we need to ensure that we get there. Let people now have that level of trust in it. You know, I cannot buy into an idea which I do not trust. Once I have questions about the credibility of that decision or that action, definitely I will not support it. So we need to ensure that the team members also are able to understand that, and let also the team members understand particularly the regulation, the standards, the rules that are setting this process taking place. Once we have done that, then we need to bring out the issue of power. The power component of the model, whereby it now empowers people to ensure that they have the right resources, they have the right mindset for them to effect the process or to accomplish that goal. So it's important that team leaders are able to determine the decision-making latitude and resources they need to accomplish the group goals. So as a team leader, your role is like, you know, a team leader should actually be above the rest. And that's why a leader is expected to be strategic. Just the same way, and from the analogy point of view, a leader should be able to see what other people are not able to see. You should be able, you're the one actually who should determine that going this direction is safer, going this direction is risky, going this direction is the best. That means you must be standing in a particular position whereby you are able to see more than the rest. Just like the wise people who are saying that what a young man can see while standing, the wise old man will see it while seated. So the same, we can look at it from that aspect, that you as a leader, then you should be able to see things that other people cannot see when you are at the same level. That way, then you're able to make decisions, you're able to advise, and you're also able to make concrete consultations before you effect any process. So team reporting, high levels of power, have considerable decision-making authority and all of the equipment, time, facilities, and the funds needed to accomplish the team goals. Now, these, we can still link it to our previous conversation on delegation. So you cannot expect people or the team to perform if they are not, you've not given them that autonomy. You know, that autonomy, however little it is, but it actually drives somebody, it gives the person the oomph to do something. It gives them that freedom to do things in a different way. So they require that power to make certain decisions. Then we have now the morale. The morale, shall we say, the morale in the person. People get the morale when they can see their effort being acknowledged, when they can see that their effort is being rewarded, the morale comes in. People also get the morale if they can see recognition. If they can see that you as a supervisor, you as a colleague, you actually showing signs of support, you're actually supporting them, you're actually encouraging them, you're giving them all the necessary support that they require. That gives the person the morale. So in this case then, teams that have high morale or high levels of morale tend to effectively deal with the interpersonal conflict and have high levels of morale and cohesion. And as you can see, from the talent, the norms, buy-in, power, then morale. So the morale becomes a counter point with regard to when people are demotivated. However, it doesn't mean that highly cohesive teams do not experience conflict. Remember, we said conflict is very, very necessary, depending on whether it's constructive and destructive. But usually, destructive conflict comes as a result of constructive conflict that has not been resolved. Sometimes when you ignore problems that have arisen, when you ignore complaints that have come to your desk, if you ignore them, then they are likely to grow, or they will actually degenerate into a very big, big mountain, which at times now you find that it's very difficult to deal with because of how deep it has affected the minds of the people. So we are saying that then conflict, we cannot say that conflict does not exist. It will always exist, but whenever people are working as a team, whenever the morale is very high, you find that people will actually solve their problems on their own. That's when you find other people coming in and supporting each other. That's when I'll be, because I'm looking at us performing as a team, and therefore, when I see that my colleague is having a challenge, I'll actually step in and support. But that will not have happened if I had poor what? I didn't have the buy-in, I didn't have the power, or my morale is very low. So teams with high morale scores have learned how to get conflict out of the open and deal with it in an effective manner. So leaders can improve morale by working with team members to determine the rules for addressing team conflict. So let's find the solutions from our own members. Always try to get that solution from the team. Let it not appear like you're imposing any solution to them. So once we are done that, then we'll have what we call the results. And based on this model, the result component describes what the team building, what did the team actually accomplish? What can we look at? What is it that we can say? What contribution can we point out and say, this is the outcome of this activity? This is the outcome of what the team have done. So high-performing teams get superior results because they have attended to the other 6 components of the rocket model. So once that vision, the mission is clear, and you have the right people to drive that mission, and you have the right norms, that means we are looking at the right culture that will enable that mission to be attained. Then you get the buy-in from the people, then you give them the autonomy, they'll be motivated, and ultimately you get your results. So those teams achieving less than optimal results can improve team performance by focusing on those problematic components of the rocket model. Now, based on this, according to Caffey and the others, what they came up with is that this acts as a model. It doesn't mean that it's a solution to all the problems within teams. But according to them, they were recommending that for you to have effective teams, ensure that you're able to blend all these 7 components. Once you blend it, and once you've been able to execute each one of them interdependently, independent means that let's not focus on just one aspect and leave out the other, because if I don't have the right norms, if the culture is poor, is weak, then I will not actually maximize or optimize the talent that I've brought in place. So we need to ensure that when we're using this, then we are using it interdependently, knowing that we cannot achieve the results if we don't have the right morale, if people are not autonomous, they don't have the power to make decisions, if we do not have the buy-in, if we don't have the norms, if we don't have the people, the right people with the skills, knowledge, and the attitude. And at the same time, you may end up having the right talent, but your mission is not clear, or your mission is not communicated. People do not just generally understand your mission. Now, this is where in one organization also somebody asked one employee, what is the mission of your organization? Unfortunately, around 70, in fact, it was a survey just to ask the few people, but it said that out of the people that were asked, close to 80% had no idea what the mission is. They only knew a few services that the company provides, but they had no idea about the mission. So that points at the aspect of lack of communication, where people don't necessarily understand what is the direction of this organization. So that once I understand the direction, then I should not be pulling on the sides. I should not appear like I'm now pulling back. Rather, I should bring myself in tandem with the framework within which this organization is supposed to move to. So, according to this survey that the CAFE and the others did, they say that they carried out an assessment of this dysfunctional health team, and they realized that when your mission is not clear, and your talent is like you just have people and you bring them on board for them to propel that mission that's not even clear, then it will actually make the norms to be also not to be clear, and the buy-in will also be very low, the power will be medium a little bit, then morale is low, the results will actually be below. So meaning that a dysfunctional health team, now a dysfunctional group is ideally a group that has so many conflicts, a group that is not synergized, a group that is fighting from within. People are not working as a team. Everyone is on their own. So that way then, having this kind of team, it will have a groupthink where it is we versus them. And once you have this kind of dysfunctional team, then you find that your results will actually be very, very, very low. And that's the feedback that they got from the assessment results from a dysfunctional healthcare team, where it revealed that there was a loss, which led to a $1 billion healthcare organization, because these executives never learned how to work together as a team, and many were let go less than 6 months after their team assessment survey was completed. So when they did that assessment, they realized that this is a team that was so disjointed, so disgruntled, and this healthcare team was achieving a lot of loss. They are losing a lot of money because of this dysfunctional team. So this essentially, then it informs us that once you have a dysfunctional team, then you are likely to experience a lot of losses, you are likely to experience a lot of waste, and people will not work as a team. However, on the contrary, then assessment for the high-performing retail team revealed that the team were more or less hitting all the cylinders in terms of the targets. So look at those targets, you can see that the mission, they actually achieved it. They ensure that all the mission that they had was clear, and people were working towards that mission. The talent, although they didn't get 100%, but you find that the talent reservoir was medium. Then with regard to the norms, with regard to how people are able to fulfill or to follow the regulations, the rules that govern them in decision making, they were actually very high. The buy-in was high. the power was high, the morale was high, and ultimately the results were very high. So these two comparisons just typically or typifies the kind of team that we have, or the teams that we have in organizations. So at one point, if you achieve the higher results, that means you've been able to build these other 6 components correctly, or you actually achieve higher results from each one of them if you are to achieve the higher results. But if the results are very low, that means you cannot say you've achieved very low results, yet people are highly motivated, they were autonomous, the talent was high or medium. Usually chances are that the results that you get are actually affected by, we can attribute those results to the failure of these other components. So the end results will actually be informed by the activities, the processes that we are carrying out at these other levels that will ultimately lead to that. So success has to be informed by that. So it's something that we need to ensure that we are alive to that fact. So if you have average people, of course, you don't expect great results or high results, because the average minds will not focus or will not give you the optimal performance. But with coaching, development, and all that, then you can still move to that level. What are then the implications of this rocket model? Is it a model that is worth adopting? Do you think it can enable you to solve your team problems? Does it give you any glimpse of a solution to your team? So this model is both prescriptive and diagnostic. Prescriptive and diagnostic. And it works very well across all the levels. From the interns, or you're looking at the interns at the level, or the students, through to the executive level teams. That's what this model is. Prescriptive in the sense that it prescribes what you need to do to build effective teams. Like now, if you look at these 7, these are prescription. That you need to get your mission right, you need to get your talent right, you need to get your norms right, you need to get your buy-in right, you need to get your power right, you need to get your morale right, you need to get your results right. That's now the prescriptive side of it. And we've had, or we've seen how each one of them is described. What is it when it comes to the norms? What does it entail when you talk about the buy-in? What does it entail when you talk about the talent? What does it entail when you talk about the mission? What does it mean when you talk about the results? So all this is what informs what we call prescriptive. Now, diagnostic is now identifying the root cause. And this is very clear from these survey results. From the 2, you've seen the diagnosis of the outcome. When the results are high and when the results are low, what does it imply? So that when you go deeper now, you identify that actually we didn't hit the target because we had introduced a process that people did not agree with. And therefore, they did not do things as per that process. Now, that's where now you diagnose and go back and identify that the problem was actually in the buy-in, or the problem was in the norms, or the problem was with the talent. Do you have the right people? Do you have the right talent? Do you have people with the necessary skills to propel you to achieve the higher mind? Or do you have the wrong culture? The other day I read somewhere and they were saying that usually teams fail because of the way we handle wrong employees. The manner in which we tolerate that person who is not working well with the team, the approach we take, how long we tolerate that person, so that if the way I'm dealing with the poor performance or the way I'm dealing with the bad attitude guys will have an effect on the high performance. So high performers are likely to loosen their grip whenever they see how I'm handling the poor performance. So we have to be very, very careful when we are handling these two teams. So that's where now the diagnostic comes in. You are diagnosing to find out where does the problem lie, so that you don't just stick to the prescriptive, but you need also to ascertain what is the root cause of this problem. Who is the problem when it comes to the talent? Who is the problem when it comes to the morale? Who is the problem when it comes to autonomy? Are we giving people the right environment for them to exercise their creativity? Are we building innovation within the team? The aspect of empowerment, do we empower people? That's what informs this diagnostic approach. So when building a new team or determining where an existing team is falling short, leaders should always start with the mission and talent components before moving to other parts of the model. So already this gives you a prescriptive way in which you can solve what the team is doing. So when you're forming a team, always ensure that they have the terms of reference. Don't form a team and just tell them, you need to work on this project, you need to work on this design, just give us a report after that. And you find that even the team leader has no clue. They start also just wondering, what is that we need to do? Because there was no clarity from the mission. What is the mission of this task force? What is it? What are the terms of reference that our team will be assessed on? So that way, and also, do you have the right people within it? Have you put together a team that is complementary, a team that will enable the actually achievement of this mission to be easier? Then, as a rocket needs a large booster to get off the ground, so teams need a clear purpose and the right players in order to be successful. I think that's very clear when it comes to having the mission and the talent. So the booster is actually the tool to get off. With the rocket, from the diagram, it's going up. So it needs that the energy from down there to propel it to the next level. Good. So any question on the rocket model or any clarification, I'll be glad to respond. Is it clear? Is it? Do you see it as as an important component? Do you think it's something that you can employ? Is it something that you can start thinking about within your setup, within your teams?
Thanks, Mwalimu, for that.
Thank you.
I think it's very relevant.
Yeah.
Looking at it from the point, we've been looking at our middle-level managers and also with our senior managers at our workplace.
Yes.
And as you're speaking, I was just trying to plug into what applies to us, and almost every bit of it applies.
Yes.
I just have a question. Was the dysfunctional team and the functional team hypothetical, or it was the other one was all-female leaders, the other one was all male leaders? Was it hypothetical or it was real life? That's question one. But question two, I think it works very well. Just picking from both the low level, mid level to senior level, and then the overall result, because I think when teams achieve results, then these other 6 components of the cylinders must be there. So I agree. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Caroline. Well, I think on the choice of the images, I think the images are a bit misleading, but the results were actually, they're not hypothetical, but the images that are used are the ones that appear hypothetical, but the results were actually authentic based on the assessment that CAFI did. Then, well, I think I like your observation. You say that when you look at the rocket model, it's giving a lot of resemblance with how you handle your team. and basically across the different levels of your management. Then yes, from Carol says, you notice on behalf of female leaders. Interesting. And I think what caught your eye is because the female leaders have been said to have lost the performance. It became more dysfunctional with women anyway. Sorry, that was, the image is hypothetical, but the results were based on CAFE's surveys. Thank you very much for that observation. Yes, very relevant. That's from Caroline. I like the components. Good. Right. Thank you very much for the observation. So I think I can now just mention a little bit about team building at the top, which still is a continuation from the rocket model. Thereafter, we'll take a break in the next 10 minutes. So when you're looking at the team building, which I've already mentioned, that team building at the top, how do you build a team from the top management so that even the person at the lower management or somebody at the support, they're also able to think on the same line with the top. So there are two critical components that we need to look for. One, we need to discern whether the challenge presenting itself involves the individual situation or a team situation. Two, we need to find out executive teams, do they have the opportunity to enhance teamwork throughout the organization that few others have? So in terms of execution, then are these executives able to execute? Are they able to cascade all these issues up to the lower level? Are they able to understand that? And that's why when I started, I said, for the team building to be effective, then we must understand, we must diagnose hapo chini. When we talk about the ground, people on the ground, what is the message? What is the communication at the ground? So that once you have what is happening on the ground, then you're able to solve or to find a solution that is pragmatic and also a solution that actually is correct as per the situation. So leaders need to know this. One, call the performing unit team, but really manage members as individuals. Create an inappropriate authority balance, assemble a large group of people, tell them in general terms what needs to be accomplished and let them work out the details. Also specify challenging team objectives, but skip on organizational supports. Assume that members already have all the competencies they need to work well as a team. So once you've done that, then one way to set up work teams is to assign specific responsibilities to specific individuals and then choreograph individuals' activities so their products coalesce into the team. Once you've done that, then as a leader, you need to ensure that you set up or assign specific responsibilities to specific individuals and then choreograph individuals' activities so their products coalesce into the team product. What do we mean by this? We're just looking at setting up a team, issuing the responsibilities or ensure that people clearly understand their responsibilities and these responsibilities blend with the team. In a soccer match, for example, if a striker is being given the ball and is not scoring, automatically the team will not score or they start blaming that striker. If the goalkeeper is not keen enough that the balls are just getting in and they're being scored by the opponent, that means the team or this individual is not coalescing with what? With the team. They're lacking that synergy within themselves, which can enable them to build a stronger team. You see a chart here. Okay. I think the chart is from the admin. So we need to choreograph that to ensure that we get it right. Now, the exercise of authority creates anxiety, especially when one must balance between assigning a team authority for some parts of the work and withholding it to other parts, because both managers and team members tend to be uncomfortable in such situations. They may collude to clarify them. So we ensure that we give people the right authority for them to exercise their work. When it comes to assembling the group, managers who hold this view often end up providing teams with less structure than they usually need. Tasks are defined only in vague general terms, group composition is unclear or fluid. That becomes a problem that we need to address. When it comes to specifying challenging team objectives without supporting the team, teams in high commitment organizations fall victim to this type when given stretch objectives, but not where they accomplish them. High initial enthusiasm soon changes into disillusionment. So as leaders, you need to know that you cannot just skimp how to support when you've given the team members challenging responsibilities. Now, we should not assume that once we've given the team the work, they know what they're supposed to do. So once the team is launched and operating under its own stream, managers sometimes assume that their work is done. However, that means you've dislodged yourself. There's disconnect between you in terms of support and what the team needs to attain. So a strict and hands-off managerial stance also can limit teams' effectiveness, particularly when members are not already skilled and experienced in teamwork. So this essentially is just building more on our inability to delegate effectively, our inability to monitor the team, our inability to, once we've given people the task or the team, have we ensured that they are working in the right environment? Do they have the right capacity? Do they have the right people? Are they working with the objective? Is the objective clear for them to do that? So that is it for team building components. So I think we can now take a break. Unless if there is any question on team building components, if there's none, then we can take a break and start on from development planning. Are we there, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, if there's no question, if there's no clarification, then I can request that we break for 10 minutes. It's 9:58. So we resume again at 8 past 10 for the final bit of this leadership, advanced leadership skills module 2. So see you again at 8 past 10.
See you.
Okay, are we back? Good morning, are we back? That we proceed.
I'm here.
Good.
Hi, we're back.
Good. Good. I can see everybody's. All right. Yes. Raphael is back also. Mary is also back. Good. So I think we can proceed. So that was on after team building. Then we move to the next component. Next component. Yes. So development planning is our next component. So development planning, just like as our discussion is anchoring around teams, then for us to have the right teams or to have the right people within the teams, then we need to have identified whether they have the right goal. Is their goal resonating with our goal as a team? Do they have the right abilities and also the perceptions about where we want them to direct their energies? Just as I mentioned earlier, when you look at even the rocket model, it informs us that you need to have the right talent. So the right talent comes in now when we are saying, can we develop? Do you have these people that will make us to achieve that goal? Sometimes organizations refer to these people as champions. I've heard in some organizations they say they have the champions. Every department there's a champion, and usually the champions are identified because of a particular task or a particular activity that they need to carry out. So these champions, it's like they carry the responsibilities of the team. They're the ones that must inform the team of what is expected of each one of them, what is the goal, how are they going to go around delivering on the specific objectives as prescribed in the terms of reference. Then when it comes to perceptions bring about attitude. So the perception that people will have, so when you're doing the gap analysis, you need to carry out your evaluation to find out what is the goal. Do people have the right goal? Is their goal resonating with what the organization or the team is intending to achieve? Then abilities, then the perceptions. Perceptions will affect the buy-in. It will affect the empowerment. It will also affect mainly the execution bit of this. So the gap analysis will be very, very useful in actually leading to this. Then, of course, as you conduct this gap analysis, you'll also establish the standards. Now, standards are just like the norms in the rocket model. So these standards are very, very specific and particular to the specific role that we would wish to develop at this juncture. So in order to build these, then we need to understand these objectives. One, what is the criteria for success? Are we going to be measured on having completed the task within the time frame? Are we going to be measured on also, depending on the terms of reference, are we looking at solving a long-term solution? Is it going to actually have that effect on the long-term solution? Are we going to save on money? Okay, are we going to save on talent? All that is what will be one of the criteria if you are to look at the bridging the gaps. Then secondly, we'll also look at the action steps or the action plans. what plans have we put in place after determining the criteria, whom to involve and reassess the dates. How are we going to ensure that we have the right people that will take part, will actually enable this process to be complete? Then we also need to bring about the stretching of assignments. We need to ensure that also we provide the resources and also the reflection bit with the partner. So once we put all these components together, then they'll actually enable us to bridge this gap. When you say you are carrying out the gap analysis out of these 4, then those 4 should be informed by this sort of questions. What is the criteria for success? What are the assignments? What are the resources? Then when we are looking at it as a team, then, for example, after we've looked at the resources and the criteria for success, then when I'm reflecting with my team and we're having a conversation, then does it tally with our mindset? Does it inform our mindset? Does it sound clear? Is there clarity when it comes to that? So once we've done that, then we move to reflecting on the learning. How do we modify the development plan? Now, when you're bridging this gap, then with the development plan, a development plan is basically the plan of action, is a roadmap to where you would wish to. So this roadmap helps the leaders to decide or to achieve what is right, and also to look at the options that are better, and also to know what sort of support that they need to put in place. So the roadmap will now help to know if there's any deviation from the main objective or from the main vision or mission of the organization, then you need to take what we call corrective actions. So you have to reflect on the learning. Now, when you're reflecting on the learning, you're basically identifying the areas that you've not excelled in. You're also determining what is it that you succeeded in, what is that you actually did well. So based on the 2 outcomes of what has been successful and what hasn't been successful, then that's where learning takes place. That's ideally now how learning takes place. So based on that, then you modify your plans. The same way we do evaluations or we do assessments of people. The main reason behind those assessments is to improve. And therefore, for us to improve, then we must go back to the plan that we had. Have to review that plan, and having identified the level of performance, the criteria that we've used, and now determine that actually have performed to this point, then the question is, the areas that were limited, what is it that can be done? What corrective action can be done? Is it that we set our objectives very highly? Were they just too ambitious, or are they just also under ambitious? That's where now then we do the modification of the development plan. Did we give us little time? And at times you've seen projects not completing within the time frame because there was an underestimation of the tasks. So that's where now modification of the development plan comes in. It comes in handy because we need to see, is it that also didn't we have the right resources to enable us to achieve this? Now, after that, then we need to transfer learnings to new environments. And the first way to do that is constantly update your development plan. The other one is enhance your learning to practice your newly acquired skills in the new environment. And the final one is to hone and refine your skills by coaching others in the development of your newly skilled or acquired skills. You need to hone your skills. I don't know how well we've honed our skills. And there's always been this debate about the technical or the hard skills and the so-called soft skills. The other day I was reading a debate, or I was reading from Simon, one of the the renowned management leaders or gurus, Simon Sinek, who was saying that there's nothing like soft skills. He actually attributed the soft skills to be human skills. That if you look at the so-called soft skills, they're not soft in any way, but they're more of the human skills that make somebody to have a lot of influence and also to deal with other people, understand them very well. It's more of the human aspect in the person. So when you look at honing the skills, then it is imperative that we determine from our development plan, we should always look up to what are these skills that I need to sharpen? What are these skills that I need to hone? So that I'm able to move to the next level. I don't think anybody will want to remain where they have been for the rest of their life. Even when you wake up in the morning, you're always looking at a brighter day. You're looking at a better day than yesterday. So because of that drive, then we are always looking at making ourselves better, improving our knowledge, improving our product knowledge, improving our skills, even improving our network. So that at times you sit down and ask yourself, am I in the right network? Do I have these people that I'm able to learn from them? If they're only learning from me, then the question is, to what extent am I impacting in them? But then, for me to actually also impact in them the relevant information, I should also be interacting with other people that will also make me to learn new things. Once I learn the new things, I'm able now to, again, share that or the new information with other people. So that's what becomes the hallmark of this kind of transferring learning to the new environment. So this document, if once you are amending the development plan document, then it should be a live document. It should be a document that you can change, you can amend, you can update, as long as you learn from the experiences, from the feedback, from the interactions that you're having, so that you keep constantly, you become what we call a learning person. You become a learning person because you constantly update your skills, you constantly know what is happening, you're constantly adapting to the new environment. And that's the only way now you can be able to transfer learning into this new environment. Then the next component is credibility. Credibility is the next component. And perhaps before we define what is credibility, I just want us to ask ourselves, in a team or in an organization, what does credibility mean? What does it mean in an organization or in a team? What is this monster called credibility? Because every time you hear people talking about credible, I want people to be credible. You must exhibit credibility. What is this credibility? Anybody to shed more light on that, or just to share your experiences that were in an organization, maybe in your organization, by credibility, we normally refer to this and that. I think it's time also to hear from the experiences, because that's the best way also to learn. So what is your take on credibility? What is this credibility from where you sit or from where you work? Or what are the components of this credibility? Or what is this credibility from your own line of thought? So you can use both the chat section, and if you can speak, you can unmute yourself, then just share with us. Anyone to start us off on credibility?
Unajua pia kuna hyenas and others. So they have to protect what they have. Unajua tu.
Hello? Someone is talking? That's Sabrina. Sabrina, you're sharing with us? Sabrina has decided to mute herself. Anybody to share with us? Okay, what is your take? What is this credibility in reference to a team, in reference to your organization? What can you take? What can you share? Caroline, over to you. Can see you're there.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, I work for the Council of Governors, and we were recently just checking. When you hear that word, credible governor, somebody who says what they say they will do, and they have done, and the team they've set. We were setting up. It's called the Service Delivery Units, and the trainer was telling the teams that for you to be able to be tested after 5 years, then there must be credibility. So whatever you said you will do, you have the knowledge, the know-how, and we can, is it trust? We can also trust that we put you in a place to be able to achieve the manifesto of this specific governor. For example, in Makueni, we were doing a study at Makueni County, and we were looking at, the governor said he will set a team to supervise all the projects. Then we were asking ourselves, it is now almost the end of the 5 years. Can we say they were credible? And we really looked and said, yes, there was expertise. They knew what they were to do. They knew how to involve the community to participate. And whenever they talked of something, they knew. But also the other issue, could we trust Governor Kivutha at his word? And now after 5 years, we are going to say, we trusted him and his team to deliver for Makueni County. I don't know if that is where credibility, but a lot of that word was being used in that exercise. A credible team. Hello?
Yes. Yeah, I think, yes. Sorry, I lost you along the way, but I understand what you are trying to put across as well with regard to, it's like under the service delivery units.
Yes.
You're basically having some indicators of, or the measures of performance that you'll be able to look at the end of the period. And so like in that case of Makueni,
yes,
the credibility bit, then was it affected by the time frame? Is it that there was a lot of the ambition to achieve that within the shortest time period, or what? Because if they had the resources, then the only thing we can attribute to is maybe the projects they had set were too ambitious within the time frame.
Yeah, I think the issue one was on the team that was set.
Yes.
So they wanted to ensure, I think the question that we were asking, how credible is that team? Were there relevant knowledge, the abilities and the expertise the team had?
Yes.
And then two, could what was put on paper be trusted to be what was on the ground?
Exactly,
and
exactly.
Those are the two parameters people looked at all through the period. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I like that comparison. I like that comparison. I can see a chart from Cosmos that's making other team members to build trust in your leadership. Yeah, I think that statement goes hand in hand with what Caroline was sharing with us. So, in fact, Caroline, you mentioned very key things. You talked about the expertise and the trust. That whatever you're doing, whatever the governor has been doing, or whatever projects they have put in place, do people trust that they will actually deliver that? So you can only exhibit credibility if people believe that whatever you've promised, whatever you've set forward is what you're going to achieve. And you can see it cuts across even from the national and also the county government leadership up to now the organizational leadership. So based on what you've set forth for people to understand, then the question is, once you believe in it as a leader, do still people also believe in it? Sabrina says it's all about trust, and we believe in what you have told us. Good. So you're looking at the aspect of trust and also the expertise. So you don't wake up today and tell people that I'm going to build for you a conveyor belt from here up to town. Yet, if we look at what you are saying, one, you don't have the expertise, you don't have the resources. And secondly, we don't see you at the center of the decision makers. You know, at times also we need to ask ourselves, are we talking to the right person? Because that, you may get people who will promise you many things, but you start casting doubt on those promises because you don't see them being influencers. They're not opinion shapers in any way. And therefore, it casts a lot of doubt on credibility. So thank you. Fair enough, Caroline and Sabrina, as well as Cosmas. So credibility is that ability to, one, to make the followers to develop trust in you. They trust in you in the information that you give to them. They also trust in you with what you share with them and also what they share with you. And also they trust that whatever you're talking about is factual. It's a factual thing. It's something that is not fiction. It's something that can be realized. And that's why when you look at credibility, then credibility has two components. One is the expertise, and the other one is the trust. So as followers to leaders, then followers will not trust leaders if they feel that their leaders do not know what they're talking about. And this is what I was saying. At times you hear people saying, or leaders talking about something, and you can comfortably bet that that's not going to happen. But then for credibility purposes, then we have people who will question and say, I don't think this is possible. I don't think this is likely to happen. That's now where this question of credibility comes in. And leaders will not trust their followers, leaders, if they feel confidential information will be leaked. Now, this goes maybe to for example, at workplace. And this, I've seen this even happening in some organizations I've worked with and also where I have worked. There's a day an employee walked to me and said, a staff member, and asked me that they talked to their senior about a problem they had. But sooner they realized that that information had actually leaked to other people. So they were complaining that, why don't we have leaders that are trusted? What makes some of these leaders not to keep the information as confidential as possible? And that's what I want to, when I'm talking about this, the aspect is, are they able to keep this information as confidential as possible? Because sometimes people get accused. Some seniors get accused because of the information that is not supposed to be shared, but they have gone ahead and shared it with other people. And once you share with another person, the other person shares it with another person. And usually, you know, in communication, we say every time information is shared, it has to be made very juicy. So anytime I'm talking about somebody, when I share with somebody else, I'll choose words that will make it juicier for this other person to get excited to hear about the information. So essentially, we expect that leaders must exhibit trust for us now to actually have credibility based on what they say and what they do. So for us to build that expertise, for example, then expertise consists of the competency and the organizational knowledge. So you need to increase the knowledge and skills in these areas. You have to build knowledge and skills in these areas so that whatever I'm saying, I'll be saying it from the know-how point of view. I'll not be saying it from the popularistic point of view. It will not be a declaration that is populist, but I'll be doing it because I know what I'm saying, or I believe in what I'm saying. You do it because your conscience is clear that this decision, you're making it because you understand the nitty-gritties about that decision. You understand the consequences of that decision. That's the essence of having knowledge and skills in those areas. And of course, as we talk about a team, then we don't expect people who have no knowledge about the organization or the industry. You can't have people to perform if they have no little information about the industry. Sometimes you call an organization, then somebody receives a call. You're inquiring about a particular service or product, and you realize that that person has no clue. That's when they start saying, okay, if that's information, let me give you another extension. So you call that extension, and again, you get another person who tells you, okay, for that one, I'm not so sure, but let me get you somebody else. Already, by just talking to the two people, your mind becomes shut. Because according to you now, you're not getting any assistance, because in your view, then at that moment, you are dealing with people who lack the expertise. They have no knowledge, they have no experience, and therefore they will not solve your quagmire that you're in at that particular point. However, on building trust, trust will be informed by clarification. We need to clarify, we need to communicate and build relationships. We need to clarify, we need to communicate the values and also build the relationships. Now, this is not a rocket science. This is for you to build trust. Even it could be in a social situation. It could be any person that you want, your brother, your sister, your mom, your parents, anybody that you're working with, somebody that you are interacting with. For you to build that trust, then you must ensure that they understand what you believe in. You also understand what they believe in. But it's only after that mutual understanding that you are able to see what are the similarities between you and the person, and what is it that you can blend together? What is it that you can complement? That's the essence of trust. And also clarify your boundaries. Don't leave them vague. Clarify what is it that you expect to be done. Then as you do that, then you build very strong relationships because people understand you. In team development or in group development, there is that period whereby you're looking at where we say you form, you storm. Then there is what? The norming session, then there is performing and adjourning. So once you find people, maybe you join a group of people or you join an organization, that's the time now it is the formation or forming stage, where now you are trying to understand how do these people communicate? How do they dress? How do they interact with the external clients? Then during that period of time, depending on your background, that's when you start experiencing culture shock. There are things that you hear that are being done, or the things that are being done in a different way. And from where you came from, that's not how things were being done. Now, that's where the norming comes in. So you start having these opposing decisions. But we were not used to doing this. How come we are supposed to do this? I'm not used to coming to work during these hours. I was working maybe from this time to this time, but this organization now you have to work from maybe 7 to 9. So now those are now the questions that come in during the storming stage. And then you start asking yourself, what are the guidelines? How do I go about it? How do I resolve this quagmire when I'm facing as an individual? So when you do that, then you normalize, it becomes part of you, and you accept that this is how to do things. This is how to communicate. This is how people conduct themselves. That's now you actually become accustomed to it, and then you build the relationships. On the same note, then we need to transfer those skills, creating a learning environment. And leaders can create a learning environment so that personal development becomes an ongoing process rather than a one-time event. So people can learn through the learning management system as well as the reports. I know learning management system initially, some organizations didn't have it. But in the fast-paced organizations or this environment that is dynamic with a lot of changes, then it's important to have an LMS, the learning management system. Reason being, information or learning will not be lost when staff leave. You need to have a reservoir of videos, a reservoir of processes, where if today I join the organization, I can go through it, can see how things are done and all that. That gives me an overview of what is expected. What is it that I should do within that specific portfolio, within the reports? All these enable people to constantly update their skills, constantly make them alive to what is happening within the organization. And remember, learning has to be ongoing. It should not be a one-off event. Good. So the last bit is empowerment. And empowerment is both development or developmental as well as delegation. This was, in fact, delegation was the first topic we discussed last week. And I see there was a lot of interest with regard to what is this delegation, how do you delegate effectively? But now, for you to empower somebody, then delegation and developmental components have to go hand in hand. They have to go hand in hand. Otherwise, if they are not resonating with each other, then you may have delegation without development. And just to take you back on what delegation entailed, we talked about giving people the right information, the right task, ensure that you're not giving somebody a task which they cannot do. And if they cannot do it, then have you trained them on how to do it? Can you coach them on how to do it? And also, can you give them the exact expectations from that job? So when you're doing that, and they understand the expected outcomes, and they know you are giving them the support, you're giving them the resources, that's now why there is this interlinking, that as you're doing that, you're actually developing these people. As you're doing that, you are making your delegation to be very, very effective, right? You're making it to be effective because you've ensured that the whole process is done as per the expectations. So delegation without development is often perceived as abandonment. If you cannot develop, then it's like you've abandoned the whole group, or you've abandoned the people. So that's why empowerment becomes very, very key. Then development without delegation can often be perceived as micromanagement. Remember, these are common things that we've discussed before, where we say, empower people, give them the autonomy. Let me not delegate, and every time I want you to put a comma where I usually put the comma. I should not empower you, and every time I need to give you a call, or I should not delegate to you, and every time you have to call me to ask for some information. That means then it's like I'm doing what? I'm micromanaging. So, and this challenge is very common in depending on how you've been trained. Whenever you get promoted, maybe you become a supervisor, then there is that aspect whereby people need to be versed with how do you do the delegation, because delegation has always been a failed process because of the manner in which we do it. Other people can delegate so that they delegate to you the work without the right information, so that you fail and you go back to them. And they will say how lousy you are, how incompetent you are, and how you cannot even do a simple task that is given to you. And you hear that people are talking loudly and saying, I don't know what's wrong with this person. They really, if you give them work, they really do it well. Without asking themselves, is it that this person is deliberately not doing it? Or have I not given them the right environment? Have I not given them how things should be done? Because those are sort of the questions that we ought to ask ourselves in view of what does this empowerment entail. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then we'll end up every time sing about delegation, sing about development, but we do not achieve what is expected to be achieved as an organization. Hence, leaders wishing to empower followers must determine what followers are capable of doing, enhance and broaden these capabilities, and give followers commensurate increases in authority and accountability. So you give it commensurate, so that I should also not just give you a lot of power, because giving you a lot of power can turn out to be counterproductive, because I'll give you a lot of power which you don't need. So just allocate or when you're empowering, because we said anytime you're empowering, you are delegating. So when you delegate with some prescriptions, delegate with some level of what? You're looking at the level of within which this person should work. So the threshold should be very clear. What sort of threshold with regard to power are you exercising as the delegatee? And that's why we're saying it's important that you give followers the kind of power that is commensurate with regard to authority and accountability. To what extent, what sort of decisions can they make on their own? So that also it's not about just every time somebody has to call you, I need to make this decision, what do I do? But give them that freedom to exercise, but also ensure that you monitor that. Because ultimately we said the accountability for this rests with the person who delegated. No one will want to hear about you saying, I gave this work to Caroline, I gave this work to Cosmas and he's not been able to do it. I will not want to hear about it, because that role falls squarely in your position. So it's you now to tell me why you didn't do it to the required standards. That's essentially what this empowerment should mean. Now that brings us to this empowerment continuum, where we have empowered employees and an empowered employee. Empowered employee and those ones that are not empowered. So if you look at the characteristics of each one of them, you find that when it comes to self-determination, the empowered employees are very high when it comes to, it's high actually when it comes to self-determination. But the unempowered ones, it's very low. Because of what? The low competency, low influence, not sure what they do, then also their morals are a bit low. While this other side, these people who are empowered have a high sense of meaning, they are very competent, but their competency is very high, and also their influence is very high. So I was not able to actually link them on each one, like influence and low influence, high influence, competency, and all that. But basically, you can see the message that I'm bringing out, that when we have empowered employees, their energy levels are very high. Their creativity levels are very high. They're just self-determined. They have a lot of sense when it comes to sense of meaning. They're very competent, and also they have a lot of influence. While this other side, these people lack determination. They have a low sense of meaning. They're not sure what to do because they are not empowered. It's like you have people who are just sitting there to do things as they are. There was a debate in one of the forums I attended, and somebody just threw in a very tough question and said, leaders, if you want to be successful, would you want to be surrounded by competent people or incompetent people for you to be successful? And surprisingly, so there are people who supported either, each of them had people who supported the ideas. There are those who said that actually they will want to be leaders who are supported by competent people. Others said there are some circumstances whereby you need to be surrounded by incompetent people or people who are not competent enough. But that debate degenerated into another question where somebody said, or just tweaked that question and said, sometimes when you have these incompetent people, incompetent people, sometimes they are fools, and therefore they can ask you a question that is a bit outrageous. Or they can ask you a question that is a bit outrageous, which can make you now to start thinking loudly that why is this person asking me such a question? The others were saying, of course, incompetent people will also not want to talk. They'll be so timid in the sense that they want to be seen to be exhibiting their incompetency. But all that debate did not, it went on and on and on, and we couldn't find any outcome. But I think what is more important is when you're looking at the people that you're surrounded with, we normally don't talk just about the people that are competent, but you need to have people that are authentic. Now, why do I say authentic people? An authentic person is that person who will not keep off, is that person who will not fear to tell you that this decision is wrong. They will not play the sycophancy aspect. But there are people that sometimes you like them, sometimes you hate them because of the facts that they'll share with you. Those are what I can refer to as authentic people. So the authentic person will tell you anything. And they'll just tell you that, anyway, this is what I feel, and this is what is the reality. So you either take it or leave it, but they will have told you that. So if you want to be a very successful person, make sure that you have these authentic people around you. Otherwise, if you don't have them, then you will think that you're doing everything right until something happens, or until an error happens, or until you make a grave mistake. That's when you realize that somebody will have told you that this is not the right forum, or this is not the right thing to do. That's now on looking at this continuum. So this continuum can have so many characteristics. These are just guidelines, but we are not saying that this is conclusively what the continuum should have. So what are the best practices of empowerment? Do we really need, or do we need empowerment? Do we really want empowerment, or we do not? So one of the best practices of empowerment is leading by example. Delegate, do it, let people see how you do it. And that's why now you lead by example. Delegation or delegating decision makers to followers. This is very, very vital, and as I've said, and you can always delegate decision making in piecemeal. So also do not bombard the person or the followers with decision making responsibilities, but you can monitor that in piecemeal to just ascertain how well they're able to make decisions. And that's why people who become the best leaders, they grow systematically. You become a team member, then you grow into that role of supervisory, then you grow to the middle management, like that. That way you'll have understood the whole cycle of leadership. But today, look at examples whereby somebody just decides that I want you to be the general manager from school. So this person will look so awkward at workplace because there are some things that they may be struggling to do, yet they're not supposed to do at that level. So having gone through the different levels of growth, it actually prepares you to hold this higher position. So ensure that you delegate decision-making process to the followers systematically or in piecemeal, so that we don't leave others without the correct information. Developing others. Remember, as you delegate, develop them. If I don't have the right training, train me. If I need coaching, if I need mentorship, do that. That way, then you are developing me. So next time, when you leave or when you move to the next level, I'm able to comfortably fit in that position without realizing the gap that is likely to occur when there was no development or there was no succession planning or development with regard to talent development. We need to have or creating a clear vision, goals, and accountabilities. That one I cannot over-explain, because I've already said that even from the rocket model, the mission should be clear. The mission has to be clear. So that with the mission, it tells you, with this mission, I need this kind of people. With this mission, I need people with this level of competency. With this mission, I cannot do without a mixture of this. So that way, then you clearly entrench the mission with the type of skill or the type of knowledge that you wish to bring on board. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for listening. Is there any, we can now hear questions or clarifications or comments from the members.
Yes, Mr. James.
Yes.
I think for me, there is something I would want you to clarify.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that you know you've had people who received company calls,
Yes.
and they could actually not explain the products. But
Yes.
then I'm looking at I work in manufacturing.
Yes.
And we have, you know, a wide variety of products.
Yes.
So if I'm in the office and someone calls me, or anyway, someone calls me and they want to understand or they want pricing for, you know, various products,
Yes.
it becomes very hard for me to, you know, give them the most accurate information.
Yes.
And therefore, I would probably refer them to the marketing department, sales and marketing.
Yes.
Department, or if the information that they would want to get
Yes.
is in production, I would probably refer them to production or quality or whichever department is responsible for that. So
Yes.
I beg for your clarification here on what you meant on that same issue. Yes.
Yes, actually, what I meant was I was just bringing out in the issue of delegation. Remember, as you've said, you don't have the information about pricing.
Yes.
But then you find that even you delegate to the wrong person. That was what I was bringing out. You find that even the second person that I've been referred to does not give me the right information.
Okay, I get.
Yes.
So it needs to be to the right person.
Yes, usually that's the challenge, whereby you are referred to another person and you find that even the other person also does not have the right information, then also sends you to another person.
Ah, okay, I get, I understand now.
Yes.
You.
And you
Otherwise,
see,
I was getting worried because for those companies with quite big
quite a vast number of
variety,
yes.
it might become a bit, and it's been said many times that HR professionals do not actually understand the business. But again, sometimes I look at it like probably not crossing the other people's lanes.
Yes.
When you find yourself handling probably production issue or sales issue or quality issue and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, normally what we advise, if you're a team,
Yeah.
like for me, what I've always advised my team is, if you're not sure about some information, you rather even just get the contact of the client and say, give me your contact. Then you just take note and say, this client was calling for this and that, so that when now that client is being given the feedback, they're given the right information. Because usually some of the clients, they get so tired when they're being taken through like 3 people. That's when they get the right information. So normally we tell colleagues or employees that the best way to handle a situation which you're not very clear is always tell the client to give you the contact, and the matter, then you can direct it to the right person. Because at times also you may direct them to the next, and that's what somebody gave an example and said that the phone was redirected to the phone of the person that was supposed to be in the office, but apparently that person was also not in that office. So then the person that was in the office was just a visitor in that office. So when they pick the call, they will also not respond to that. Sometimes the best way is to just get the client's information. Then when that response is being given, it actually, because it also gives that assurance to the client.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Carol says, how do you best change a bad culture at the top? This may frustrate your efforts. How do you best change the bad culture at the top? Now, usually the culture of the organization, we say, is shaped by the leadership or the leadership of the organization. So if the leadership of the organization is bad, chances are it has infiltrated into the other components of the organization. So even if you now change, usually some people will say that we change the CEO, we change the manager and all that. At times you may change that, but if you don't go back now to the specific components within that structure that requires now the transformation, so that now they understand that that culture was wrong or that culture did not lead us to better results, then we need to change as a team. So now that perception is completely shifted from the person, so that we don't blame the person, but we should also look at the whole system that this person was leading. That's the essence of that. So you can only change that bad culture from the top if you also change the culture from the bottom, because the bottom resonates with the top. At times you may have very few people within who do not subscribe to the bad culture, but you find that a lot, in most cases, when the CEO has that culture, it tends to infiltrate, because there are people who want to associate with the boss, and therefore they will actually try to imitate, or they will try to live to that kind of culture. So it has to be, it's like you must do it from the top as well as from the bottom. But you've seen companies that have failed. You think that having a new CEO from another company will change everything. They come in, but the system does not support them. And that's why we say sometimes the system, a bad system, will destroy a bad leader. Because if you come in and the system is so rigid, you cannot change it, then it actually avoids a lot of questions now when it comes to the culture. So those systems are the ones that they need to be as flexible as possible to actually adapt to any change. So that when you bring in the new CEO, the new manager, they're able now to have systems that will support them to entrench any new culture, any new changes that will be working well for the organization. I hope I've been able to answer considerably your question, Carol. Then Mary says you need to know. Yeah, Mary says you need to know who or where to refer the callers to. To do this, you must know that each department does, yes, or who does what. Thank you, Mary, for sharing with us on that. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Right, so unless if there is any other query, any other person with a burning question, otherwise from me, I want to say thank you very much for your attentiveness, for your participation, and for sacrificing your time to be part of this training today. And I'm looking forward to next week as we wind up on the last bit of advanced leadership skills. So my appreciation goes to you and also to the organizer, that's Dan, for making it possible, and also for you guys for dedicating your time and also being alive to the discussions throughout these. For the notes, there'll be, I think the notes, I just broke them into 3, but they'll be shared as one after this, the third module, that's next week. That goes to Carol, who was asking about the notes. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend and have a fantastic week next week. And let's look forward to meeting again next Saturday. Asante sana and be blessed.
Thank you, James.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you, Falguni.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, then. I can't hear you. You muted yourself.
I'm saying it was a very good
Yes.
presentation. I've watched
Thank you.
all of
Thank
it.
you. Ah, great, great, great.
And so my daughter wants to say hi.
Oh, she's there. Wow,
Yes.
how are you? You've grown very fast. You are in which
Thank
class?
you.
Grade
Grade 1.
you are in which?
Unajua-
In grade
unajua
1.
they lost a near.
Yeah, I'm in grade
Yeah, the
1.
whole of last year. Oh, good. Which school?
Brookshire Schools.
Wow.
And the other fellow is there.
Fantastic, fantastic.
You can see
Thank
the
you.
other fellow.
Yeah? Yes, I can see the other fellow
You
relaxed
can see the other.
on the machine.
Yeah, with a big
Eh?
machine.
Nana is with a big machine. Eh?
Yes,
Say hi to him.
it's a jeep. Hi.
Ah, wow. Oh. Eh? Unaona kama atatoka kwa hiyo machine kweli?
Yeah.
Ah, sasa mambo ba.
So these are my people.
Those are your shareholders.
Yeah, the directors.
Hao ni wadau. Hao ni wadau, eh?
Yes.
Ah, great.
So I have
Yes.
already done something. I've seen Carol was asking for notes.
Yes, I told her that they'll be shared at the end through the.
Yeah.
Sasa.
Fanya hivi.
Bye. Bye. Okay, so asante sana. Yeah.
But he was trying to skip the meeting.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Yes.
We're trying to get out from the meeting.
Mm-mm.
Papa.